The first time I saw the house, it was 3:13 a.m., and the moon hung over the village like a question no one dared ask. The sky was bruised. The wind was silent. And every dog had stopped barking. I wasn't supposed to be awake. But something pulled me to the window. And there it stood, at the top of Hollow Ridge Lane, where no house had ever been before. A 3-story monstrosity of soot-black stone, draped in ivy like funeral cloth, windows too tall, door too thin. The kind of architecture that looked like it should be whispering. But it was the clock that drew me in. A massive brass contraption embedded in the facade, as wide as a carriage wheel, its face cracked, its numerals missing entirely. No hands. No ticking. Just a stillness that felt hungry. By morning, the house was still there. My mother didn't see it. Neither did the postman, nor the old widow who walked her blind dog past the lane every day. "Just the fog, dear," they said. "Just the wind." But I knew better. It had looked at me. I was 17. Restless. Curious. The kind of boy who read about ghost ships and bleeding statues under his bedsheets with a flashlight and questions. So naturally, I waited until the next 3:13 a.m. The moment the grandfather clock downstairs struck 3, I crept out. The grass was damp with a dew that smelled faintly of ash. My breath clouded even though it was June. And the moment I stepped onto Hollow Ridge Lane, time bent. The church bell struck 3, again. Then again. And again. But my pocket watch refused to move past 3:13. When I reached the gate, it opened on its own. Black iron. Cold. Taller than a man and lined with symbols I would only later realize were calendrical. Not astrological. Not magical. Just counting. The path to the front door was lined with statues, each weeping from the eyes, the cheeks, the ears. Some looked like villagers. Some looked like me. The door did not creak. It sighed. Inside, the house was impossibly large. Cathedral ceilings, spiraling staircases, mirrors in corners where no walls met. But what struck me most was how quiet it was. No floorboard groaned. No wind through windows. Not even my own breathing. Then came the ticking. Soft. Distant. But rhythmic. I followed it. Through the hall of crooked paintings, each face turned away, past a corridor of clocks that ticked backward, to a room so cold the breath froze in my throat. There, on a pedestal of bone-white marble, sat the first real clock I'd seen in the house. It had hands. It had numbers. But they were wrong. Hours stretched unevenly. Minutes curved. Seconds reversed. And at its center was a spinning ring of teeth, human teeth, that clicked with every tick. "She lets it feed on minutes now," came a voice behind me. I turned, heart racing. An old man stood in the doorway. He wore a coat that shimmered like old paper, stitched with dates instead of thread. "Who are you?" I asked. "I was the last one to leave the house," he said. "In 1894. Or perhaps next year. It's hard to be sure, once she has your hours." "She." "The house," he whispered. "Or what's inside it. Time doesn't pass here. It ferments. It curdles. And then it eats." I backed away. He didn't follow. But as I crossed the threshold of the room, he added, "Whatever you do, don't touch a clock." "Why?" "Because if you adjust it, it adjusts you." I ran. The halls twisted. Doorways appeared where walls had been. Rooms lengthened. One corridor dropped into a pit of mirrors, where my reflection was older, and begged me not to jump. But somehow, I made it back to the entrance. The door was gone. Just a blank wall of stone where it had been. Behind me, the ticking grew louder. And from the ceiling, the brass face of the house's main clock slowly turned to face me, now floating upside down, suspended on chains. Its hollow hands spun in frantic circles. And it spoke in the voice of a dozen lost hours. "Tick, tock. We eat what you waste." That was 3 nights ago. Or maybe 100 years. Or maybe I haven't left yet. I was still in the house. I knew it because time no longer made sense. When I opened a door, a younger version of me sometimes walked out. Sometimes older. One version had gray in his hair and a scar across his cheek I didn't yet have. Another looked terrified of me. I avoided mirrors. They lied. Or worse, remembered too much. I wandered. Days. Weeks. The house didn't let me sleep. Or eat. Or breathe properly. But I never died. Time dripped, not flowed. Every second I stayed, something peeled off me. A memory, a feeling, a year. But then I found him. The room looked like a chapel. Stained glass windows showed scenes of clocks drowning in oceans, children aging into corpses mid-step, and suns melting over calendars. In the center, an hourglass the size of a man, filled with black sand that flowed upwards. Sitting in front of it, cross-legged, was a man in a wedding suit. Old, but not fragile. His fingers were stained with ink. His tie was torn. He smiled as if he hadn't had a visitor in centuries, and maybe he hadn't. "You've come to ask the time," he said. "No," I replied. "I've come to find a way out." His smile faded slightly. "Oh, child, that isn't how this house works. You don't leave. You negotiate." "Negotiate with whom?" He pointed to the hourglass. "With her." I didn't understand. He explained. Long ago, the house was a monastery. But the monks discovered something beneath it, a chamber made not of stone, but of moments. A pure core of time itself, beating like a heart. They tried to contain it. They built clocks, calendars, rituals. But time cannot be caged, only fed. So they began to sacrifice what they could spare, seconds from prayers, hours from sleep. Eventually, whole lifetimes. And the thing below grew hungry. "She's not evil," the man said. "Just insatiable. You call her she." "We had to call her something," he smiled sadly. "She liked names. I gave her mine. What does she want? Moments that should never have existed. Forgotten regrets. Unspoken truths. Echoes. She eats the things that rot in your soul." He placed a hand on the glass. "And if you give her enough, she lets you stay. If untouched by time. Forever." He told me he'd been her groom for centuries. He'd given her everything. His childhood, his memories, even his name. And in return, she'd given him stillness. But now she wanted new things. Me. I turned to leave. The man didn't stop me. But as I crossed the chapel's threshold, the hourglass whispered in my head, "You will return. They all do." I tried to map the house. Didn't work. Rooms moved. Stairs bent. At one point I walked through a hallway with 1,000 ticking clocks. Each one showed a moment from my life. My first kiss. The day my sister died. The minute I almost drowned. The second I wished I'd never been born. And when I looked away, one of them vanished. I no longer remembered which. Eventually, I found a girl. Maybe 14. Sitting on a staircase that never ended. She held a broken watch in her lap and was humming a lullaby I remembered from my mother's voice, except I couldn't recall the words anymore. "Have you seen the way out?" I asked. "There isn't one," she said. "But if you find a when instead of a where, you might escape." "A when?" "There's a room," she whispered, "called the midnight that was forgotten. If you find it, you might bargain your way free." "How?" "Bring her something she's never heard before." It sounded impossible, but I had to try. The house creaked. Not from age, but from shifting possibilities. I watched a man age 100 years in a moment as he tried to climb a spiral staircase. I saw a woman dissolve into moths after reading her own diary aloud. I kept going. And then I found the room. It had no door, only a mirror. I stared into it, and the reflection didn't match. It was a version of me that had never entered the house. He looked peaceful, happy. He reached out and touched the glass, and suddenly I remembered something she'd never heard. A moment so small I'd forgotten it. The laugh of my sister, age 5, as she spun in circles on the hill behind our house. She'd fallen, cried, and I'd sung a song to calm her. Not a song from any book. A song I'd made up. 3 notes. Wordless. Pure. Time had never touched it. The mirror cracked. The walls screamed. And I heard the hourglass bride whisper, "You dare give me innocence? A flavor I have not tasted in an eon. Very well. I will give you a choice." The room split open like paper catching fire. And on the other side, 2 doors. One red, one black. And her voice echoed again. "One leads back to your life. The other to mine. But you may never tell anyone what you saw." "And if I choose wrong?" I asked. "Then you will remain here, as one of my clocks." The doors stood before me, one red, one black. Identical in size. No handles. No hinges. But one pulsed slightly, like a slow heartbeat, and the other wept a single line of molten sand. Behind both, forever. Above me, the ceiling faded into a sky full of shifting moons. Beneath my feet, the floor cracked into old calendars and forgotten names. I reached out. "Careful," said a voice beside me. It was the girl from the staircase. Or maybe a version of her. Her eyes had no color now. Just deep sockets filled with ticking. "She'll let you choose," the girl said. "But only one door is real. The other leads to a never." "Which is which?" I asked. "She doesn't even know anymore." So I waited. For what, I wasn't sure. Then I remembered what the hourglass had told me. You may never tell anyone what you saw. It was a riddle. A curse. But it was also a key. I whispered the song again. The one from my sister. The one without time. 3 notes, sung softly. And the red door shuddered. It hissed like a dying fire. The black one did not move, but I saw something shift in its reflection. Me, only far older. Bent. Worn. Wearing a coat stitched with dates. The bridegroom. I made my choice. I stepped toward the black door. It opened before I touched it. A rush of wind. A cry of clocks. And suddenly, I was falling. Down, down, down. Through seconds like feathers. Through days like blades. Through years made of bone. Memories flew past me like birds. My sister's face, forgotten then remembered. A hallway I never walked. The kiss I almost had. The time I nearly died in a lake I'd never seen. And then, stillness. I was lying on a cold wooden floor. Sunlight bled through a crack in the curtains. The sound of birds. My heartbeat. Breath. Real time. I sat up. I was in my bedroom. The clock on the wall read 7:45 a.m. June 7th. The morning after I first saw the house. Had it all been a dream? No. Because there on my desk was a single object. A brass key with no teeth. And carved on its side, "You chose." I lived the next few days in silence. My mother noticed I was quieter. My friends said I seemed older. But something inside me had changed. Time felt heavier. I no longer wasted minutes. Because I knew now, they could be eaten. Then, one night, the clocks in town began ticking backward. The church bell rang at midnight 13 times. And someone knocked on my window. It was the girl. But she was different now, her hair white, her hands translucent. "You left the door open," she said softly. "She's still hungry. What do I do?" She handed me a book bound in skin, filled with calendars written in reverse. "You must finish what the monks started. You must seal the hour that was never born." She vanished. And when I opened the book, I saw it. My name. A ritual. A price. And below it, a list of clocks that must be broken, one by one. Each one tied to a moment I'd regret breaking. The first. The minute I first said, "I hate you," to my father. The second. The hour I refused to answer my sister's call. The third. The second I ignored a man crying in the street. I understood. I had to break these clocks. Give those moments to her. Feed her the rot. Seal the breach. Or the house would open again. And next time, she wouldn't wait. I broke the first clock. My father died in peace, never knowing my anger. I broke the second. I called my sister, and heard nothing, because she no longer existed. I broke the third. The man on the street smiled, and the house at the end of Hollow Ridge Lane vanished. But I still had the key, and one door yet unopened. The key burned in my pocket. Each night I dreamed of doors, some made of bone, some of ash, some that pulsed with soft breathing. But one always returned, a door with no handle, no hinges, and no outline until the clock struck midnight that was forgotten. And on the seventh night, I found it. Not in a dream, but beneath the floorboards of my own house. The planks had shifted, ever so slightly. Beneath them, dirt. Beneath the dirt, stairs. And beneath the stairs, the hourless corridor. A tunnel lined with tickless clocks and mirrors that showed future regrets. I walked for what felt like centuries, but the body did not tire. Time was thinner here. It leaked, like old blood. At the end of the corridor stood the final door. The one I had never chosen. It was not black, not red, but a dull gray, like the underside of an overcast sky. No light came from behind it. No sound. Just weight. As if all lost time had been piled behind it like corpses. And on its surface, a small, circular indentation. The keyhole. I placed the brass key inside. It fit. Of course it did. And when I turned it, the door did not open. The house did. Time exploded inward. Wind, screams, bells, bones, the smell of burned calendars and wet clocks. I fell forward and landed in the core. A vast cavern beneath the world, where moments swam like fish in the dark. Every second anyone had ever lost floated here. Unspoken confessions. Laughter that died alone. Memories forgotten at the edge of sleep. And she was waiting. Not a woman. Not a ghost. Not even time itself. But something wearing its skin. She looked like every clock I'd ever ignored. A dress made of torn calendars, hair of melted watch springs, eyes that blinked once every century. "You returned," she whispered. "I came to close the loop," I said. She circled me slowly. "Do you know what you are, little moment?" she asked. "You are not real. Not anymore. You broke your clocks. You changed your time. Then let me pass." "No," she said. "But I will offer you a gift." She reached into her chest and pulled out a glass sphere. Inside it, my life untouched by her. A version of me who had never seen the house. Who had lived fully. Who would die peacefully in bed at 92. "I can give you this," she said. "But you will forget everything. Everyone. Even her. My sister." She nodded. "Gone. Forever. But happy." I looked at the orb. Perfect. Warm. False. And I did what I had to do. I crushed it. The shattering sound echoed across centuries. And she screamed. "Then choose your end, devourer of clocks." And from her mouth burst time itself. It struck me like fire and ice, memory and oblivion. I burned with every moment I'd ever lived and died with every one I had yet to touch. And then, silence. I woke in my bed. A single gray feather lay on my pillow. The clocks in the house were gone. My memories, whole. But my shadow ticked, subtly. With every step, it moved slightly offbeat. I still have the key. I still dream of the house. But now I know this. She's not locked away. She's sleeping. And when enough people waste their hours, forget their minutes, or silence their hearts, she'll wake again. And when she does, I will be her doorkeeper, candle, And somewhere, in a forgotten hour, a clock without hands just started ticking again.